guys. Wow, trust you are doing good today. So I welcome you to another series of Python for full course tutorial. So in this series, in the last previous series that we have done, so we have looked about many Python topics that we have covered, and we even perform a little project called simple calculator programs. So I believe we all practicalize it in the last previous video. So it will even be okay when you are practicalizing the skills by yourself. Maybe you try to run a programs by yourself. You try to do some complex projects or tasks that you might give yourself. That improve the credibility of you knowing the programming language that you are learning currently. So, and even not to think of that. So Python is a very good programming language to learn. So now in this series, what are we going to be doing? We are going to be looking at the 4 data arrays that we have in Python. So the first one is Python list, the second one is Python tuple, the third one is Python set, the fourth one is Python dictionary. So we'll be taking this topic one by one and after each other. But before we move forward, so I believe we all practicalize all everything that we have learned so far in the previous video. So if that should be the case, so now let's proceed to some good other things like Python list now. So now let's dive into Python list. So what is data arrays? Arrays is just some kind of list that we have in Python programming, like putting an item, storing an item into a basket. Now let's take it in a real life scenario. You put an item, different item into a bag. So inside the bag contains different kind of items. So anytime you need them, you can pick it up from that bags and make use of them. So same thing applicable to Python too. So we store those data inside list or tuples or even set or even dictionaries like that. So now let's dive into Python list. So now, what is list? List is just like data types of arrays in Python. So now, like this, I can store, let's say I create a new variable, fruits. So then to make list in Python, you have to use this bracket. So this bracket allows you to make use of list. So now let's say we store different kind of fruit inside here. So this is how to save list. So that is for apple, this one is mango, this one is for mango, and this one is, let's say, strawberry. This one is, let's say, pine apple. So now, but I want you to look into some characteristics of Python list. And what are those characteristics of Python list? The characteristic of Python list is this: lists, they are always in order. Lists are always in order. That is the first characteristics of Python list. So the second characteristics of Python list is lists are always changeable. That means you can change them. Changeable. That means you can change list. And also lists are always allow duplicates. That means you can add duplicate items. So these are the 3 characteristics of Python list. So these are the 3 characteristics of Python list. Tuples has their own characteristic too. So but these are the characteristics of Python list that we have. So okay, in this scenario, let's move forward. Okay, we don't need this. So these are the characteristics of, so they are always in order. These are always changeable. So lists are always allowed duplicates. Now let me explain those characteristics now. So lists are always in order, meaning that all these items in front variables now. Okay, firstly let's print the types of what types of variables do we have. So anytime you want to print any types of an item, so you have to use a function called type. So this function will text you, let's say, these functions will allow you to know the kind of data that is being stored in that variable. So now let's check for the types of data that is being stored here. Now let's run our code and see. Now what do you see? That we have class list. That means the variable that we are trying to print out the types is list. So anytime you see this kind of objects in Python, so it takes you the types of objects, the types of data that we have in that variable, which is list. So that is why we have list. So this is list, so we know that this is list like that. So what we need to do is, now the first one is, they are always in order. Lists are always in order. In what sense? In the sense that every item, we did this in string in the previous classes. So every item in a list, that means it has what we call index number. So the index number of every list of items start from 0. So this apple now is 0. It's just like this. 1 is just 0. This is 1. This is 2. And then this is 3. So every item in a list, they has what we call index number. So the index number for every item that you are seeing here, these are here they are. So now, so for every index number that you are seeing here, this one is 0, 1, 2, 3. So that is the first characteristics of list. They mean they are always in order. So in order, that's 0, 1, 2, 3. So in the opposite way around, from the back, if you want to count from the back, that means this pineapple will now be -1, -2, -3, and -4. But if you are counting from the positive aspect of this list item, you start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So from the negative, -1, -2, -3, and -4. So that is how we start counting. So that means the first characteristics are what? They are in order. Now let's try to print out the list that we have. Let's try to print out the list on the console. Let's see what we have. Now we have the item printed out on the console as a list of items. So now that is meaning that the list of items that we have in fruit has been printed out on the console. So let's explain the second characteristics. The second characteristics is lists are always changeable. That means I can make changes to the item in the list. And how can I do that? How do I do that? Now let me now explain this. Now to make changes to the item on the list, you have to make the changes based on their index number. So now, what is the index number of? Now let's say I want to change the index number of mango, which is index number 1. So now let's say fruit. Now let's access the index number, which is 1. So then let's change the item to let's change it to another fruit. Let's change it to cherry. So now we have cherry. So now let's run our code like that. We just make changes to mango now because we are changing the item, which is the index number 1, and index number 1 is 0, 1. That is mango. We are now changing it to cherry now. So to change this item to cherry, so now let's see what we have on the console. Now do you see that when it prints out our list, then we can see that we no longer have mango in the list, but now we have cherry. So now this covers the second characteristics of lists, which means they are always changeable. That means you can make changes to the item of the list. So now let's move on to the next character, which is the last characteristics of list, meaning that they are always allow duplicates. And what do I mean by duplicates? The duplicates that I mean is, like now, I can have 2 apple. That means duplicate of apple, and I can have duplicate of cherry. So now if I print the list out on my console, then you see that we have apple here, and then we also have apple here. We have cherry here, and then we also have cherry here. So meaning that they always allow duplicates. That means you can duplicate an item inside the list. So now let's assume like we make changes to this list by this, and we don't want to print all the item in the list. We only want to print the one of the index number out. Now let me just comment this change. So I don't want to delete it. I just want to comment it out. So now, so that it won't change the item from mango to cherry. So now let's say you want to just print out one item of the list. You don't want to print all the items in the list. So now we want to print out the strawberry only, so we don't want to print the rest of it. So we have to call the index number of strawberry, which is 0 for apple, 1 for mango, and 2 for cherry. So to print that, you just have to call the index number like this. Just type 2 and then run your code. Then you should see strawberry on the console. So once you see strawberry on the console, meaning that you are only calling the index number of 2. Let's say, okay, we don't want to print strawberry alone, we only want to print from apple to pineapple. So we only want to print the item of apple, mango, and strawberry. We don't want to print apple. So but you just want to say what is the index number of these items. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So that means you are going to say from 0 to 3. So from 0 to 3, so you are printing the items of the list by from 0 to 3. So when you run this code, you should see apple, mango, strawberry. So we get what we want. So this is how we can print something out. Now let's say, okay, good, we know that this is how we can print something from this range. So now let's try to print something from the back, from the negative aspect. So let's say fruit and minus 1. I told you that when you are starting counting from the negative aspect, which is from the back, you start with minus 1. There is no 0. But if you are starting from the positive aspect, you start from 0 here. So print fruit minus 1, meaning that we only want to print cherry out in the second print line. So now let's run our code and let's see what we have. So this is our first print statement, and this is our second print statement for cherry, which is minus 1. So let's assume you want to print from cherry to strawberry. So you only say minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and minus 4. So you should say that from this range to minus 4. So when you run this code, you should have a result of empty list, because reason why we're having an empty list is you can't print this backward like this. So rather than then, you can only try to set from minus 1, or let me just say from minus 4 to minus 1. So now let's print something, and then do you see that we have this strawberry, pineapple, and apple. So our codes work successful like that. So if you check what we did here, we are trying to access from minus 4, which is the strawberry, to minus 1. So that is how we can index number in a list. So in this tutorial, we have covered the characteristics of the Python list, and we have also listed some item on the list. We make changes to the item in the list, and then we try to access the item in ordered, and then we try to duplicate the item in a list. Why means why list allows duplicate to every items that you might want to add on to the existing list. So guys, in the next tutorial, I'll be covering what is called list method. So list method is they are very great functions in accessing or manipulating the data in a list. So in the next tutorial, we'll be covering more about list method. So guys, I will meet you in the next tutorial. So thank you, bye.